I thought a rhino would be a big improvement over an ox for plowing. Come back! We have a lot of work to do!
Shalom Aleichem, Assalamu Alaikum. Welcome to part 2 of our 5-part series on the animals of Job chapter 39. In this video, we're going to look at the rhino, the rhinoceros. So a bit of housekeeping before we get into the content of Job 39. This is an entry from Merriam-Webster, the dictionary people, and it is entitled Unicorn, Nothing is What It Seems. So let's lay down the truth. What is a unicorn? Unicorns did not always look like that. Poor Marco Polo, the 13th century Italian explorer, had finally gotten a glimpse of a unicorn, and he was sorely disappointed. Their hair is like that of a buffalo, and their feet like those of an elephant. In the middle of the forehead, they have a very large black horn. Their head is like that of a wild boar, and is always carried bent to the ground. They delight in living in mire and in mud. It is a hideous beast to look at, and in no way, I rather think they're cute, and in no way like what we think and say in our countries, namely a beast. So they're in no way like what we think and say in our countries, namely a beast that lets itself be taken in the lap of a virgin. This picture here of a horse with the narwhal sort of protrusion. Indeed, I assure you that it is quite the opposite of what we say it is. It's not hard to feel for him, Marco Polo. Like the rest of us, he thought he knew what a unicorn looked like. Most of his contemporaries did too, as it was a very popular animal in the medieval equivalent of the internet, that is, art and literature. Just like today, medieval depictions of unicorns varied from artist to artist, but in general, it was similar to the one we know. It was a horse-like or goat-like creature, pure white in color, and dainty and refined in appearance. Unique to this marvelous animal was one long and tapering horn that grew straight out from its forehead. But where did this image come from, and what animal was Marco Polo so underwhelmed by? First things first, we can blame the Greek physician and historian Ctesias for the kernel of the ideal unicorn. As Margaret Beam Freeman reports in the Unicorn Tapestries, Ctesias was the first person to write about the one-horned animal, and she quotes from his book, Indica, written around 400 BCE. This is before the Septuagint, ladies and gentlemen. There are in India certain wild asses which are as large as horses and even larger. Their bodies are white, their heads are dark red, and their eyes dark blue. They have a horn in the middle of the forehead that is 1 cubit, about 1.5 feet in length. The base of this horn is pure white. The upper part is sharp and of a vivid crimson, and the middle portion is black. Other asses, tame or wild, do not have an ankle bone, but these do have an ankle bone. The most beautiful that I have ever seen. This animal is exceedingly swift and powerful, so that no creature, neither the horse nor any other, can overtake it. This early description gave the world the image of the horse-like body, the white color, and the single horn, an image that would later be transformed into the medieval unicorn. And note the ankle bone, but it seems clear from several of Ctesias' statements that he actually had the Indian rhinoceros in mind, or perhaps someone's description of it. Ctesias himself never visited India. The Indian rhinoceros and one other Far Eastern species are the only land mammals with one horn. We have 2 species of African rhinoceros that have 2 horns. Ctesias mentions the pharmaceutical value of the horn from the Indian wild ass. Rhinoceroses have suffered for centuries from the supposed value of their horns as aphrodisiacs and antidotes. He considered the wild donkey very fleet and difficult to capture. The Indian rhinoceros, despite its lumbering appearance, is swift, and its capture is both difficult and dangerous. But the Indian rhinoceros has a massive, ungainly body, stumpy legs, and a thick, folded hide that looks like plates of armor. With the exception of its single horn, it is profoundly unlike the lithe unicorn of medieval art, and one can understand why Marco Polo was not exactly dazzled. Why did this huge and distinctly undainty beast get turned into a beautiful white horse? The beautiful ankle bone may have played a part, but a linguistic fumble likely shares some of the blame. That's a typo. We start with the word rhinoceros, based on the Greek rhine, which is nose, and keras, horn, an accurate enough name for the animal. All rhinoceros species do have horns, more precisely masses of compressed hair-like material, more or less on the nose. And what about unicorn? That means one horn, from the Latin uni, one, and cornu, horn. While this is a descriptive name for the rhinoceros, unicorn was originally applied to something entirely different. When scholars were translating the Bible's Old Testament from Hebrew into Greek in the 3rd century BCE, that's the Septuagint, they encountered a mysteriously named animal. The Hebrew word for this creature was re'im, and the beast was evidently large and powerful. In Job 39, the writer asks, as the King James Version puts it, "Will the unicorn be willing to serve thee, or abide by thy crib? Canst thou bind the unicorn with his band in the furrow, or will he harrow the valleys after thee?" And that introduction video alludes to that. "Wilt thou trust him because his strength is great, or wilt thou leave thy labor to him?" Modern scholars believe the re'im was the aurochs, a wild ox, which is now extinct. And then we have the RSV edition of the Bible that translates it using this interpretation. Although our modern view of the creature referred to here is quite different, ancient scholars had to come up with a Greek word for it, so drawing on garbled descriptions of the rhinoceros, they settled on the Greek word monokeros, meaning one horn. Monokeros had already been used by some writers for the Indian rhinoceros. The Latin version of the Bible turned this word into unicornus, which in English became unicorn. To sum up, vague information on two different animals, the Indian rhinoceros and the aurochs, was conflated to produce another imaginary animal, the unicorn. I'm going to skip over this section. One last question we'll address here. Why is it unicorn and not unihorn? Besides the fact that it traces back to the Greek monokeros, the H at the beginning of the Old English word horn did not sound like our H. It was a scraping of the tongue in the back of the mouth kind of sound. Technically a voiceless velar fricative, like the Scottish CH at the end of loch. It sounded a lot more like corn than is apparent to a modern speaker, which we hope will be of some comfort to our readers. So actually would be the H at the beginning. So unicorn. So there you have it. The original unicorn was a rhinoceros. Our ancestors pronounce horn a lot like corn, horn, and the business world is trying to make unicorn dinosaur happen. Don't let any of it prevent you. Okay, so that's it. And this is the suspect in question. This is who Marco Polo or whoever witnessed this animal, this creature, and was appalled. This is the unicorn. Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, I don't have to explain why I refer to the unicorn as the rhino. So verse 9 says, "The unicorn will be willing to serve thee, will it, or to lie down at thy manger." Well, they'll bind his yoke with thongs, which are leather straps, commonly used for horses nowadays. Will he plow furrows for thee in the plain? The answer is no, he won't. Rhinos are naturally defensive and I'm going to say very unpredictable, not just unpredictable. Unlike an ox, which has a herd mentality and follows a leader, rhinos are solitary and they do not naturally yield to authority. To domesticate a rhino or any animal, you must be able to contain it to control breeding. A rhino, as you saw in the introduction video, although that's artificial intelligence, a rhino can easily smash through almost any standard farm fence, and that's doesn't take AI to know that. It's just common sense. Makes the rhino nearly impossible to keep on a patch of land for work, plowing a field, for instance. It would take 12 plus years for a rhino to reach sexual maturity, and they have a gestation period of 15 to 16 months. So this would mean a farmer would have to wait decades just to see if a single docile trait was passed down, making selective breeding a futile exercise. Okay, so his strength is great. Is he going to bring your seed back to your threshing floor? That's all for the rhino video. Hope it's helpful to you. It's a little lighthearted, but we're going to move on to the next video, part 3, which is the ostrich. So thank you very much for your time. Till next time, I bid you all Shabbat Shalom. Shalom Aleichem. Assalamu Alaikum. Irini Mazisu. Pax Vobiscum. Peace be unto you, and Maranatha.